Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a city, vibrant and sprawling, called Liberty City. On the surface it gleamed with the promise of opportunity. High-rises touched the sky, parks bloomed with manicured beauty, and in districts like Maplewood Heights, opulence was practically painted onto every perfectly manicured lawn, the kind of place where dreams were supposed to flourish. But beneath that shimmering facade, in the hushed corners and the cold, unfeeling hallways of power, there was another story. A dark whisper that grew into a chilling reality for far too many. It was a story about Precinct 7. And in Liberty City, when people spoke of Precinct 7, they didn't speak of heroes. They spoke of shadows. For over 2 decades, this wasn't just a police station. Oh no, it was a fortress. A stronghold built not on the bedrock of justice, but on the shifting sands of fear, intimidation, and absolute impunity. Here, the badge wasn't a symbol of protection, it was a license for brutality, a license to bend the rules, a license to break lives. They perfected it. Every accidental arrest that cleared a quota, every silenced witness who suddenly disappeared from the system, every whispered bribe that lined pockets and sealed lips. They were masters of their craft, a well-oiled machine of corruption. They thought they were untouchable. They thought wrong. Now imagine that picture-perfect neighborhood, Maplewood Heights. Specifically, the gleaming aisles of Bloomfield Market, the kind of upscale grocery store where the organic kale is flown in daily and the artisanal cheese selection takes up an entire wall. On any given Tuesday afternoon, it's a symphony of polite chatter, the rustle of shopping bags and the gentle hum of refrigerated display cases. And that's precisely where our story truly begins. Dr. Vivian Holloway, at 78 years young, moved through those aisles with a quiet grace. She was a woman who commanded respect without ever demanding it. Her posture, ramrod straight, spoke of a lifetime spent in lecture halls, not just teaching but inspiring generations. A retired university professor, a brilliant historian, her life had been a meticulous chronicle of the human struggle for civil rights, for justice, for dignity. Every line etched on her face was a testament to battles fought, some won, some still raging. She carried herself with a quiet dignity, her sharp mind constantly observing, analyzing, understanding the world around her, both its beauty and its inherent complexities. She wasn't just buying organic carrots, she was a living library, a testament to resilience. Then they appeared, 2 figures cutting through the genteel hum of the market like sharks through placid water, Officers Grant and Dixon. Young, sharp-edged, and carrying themselves with an almost theatrical swagger. You could practically feel the aura of impunity radiating from them. They embodied the culture of Precinct 7. They didn't see a distinguished retired professor. They saw an easy target, an older black woman in an upscale neighborhood. Perhaps a misplaced wallet in her purse, a forgotten item in her cart. An assumption, an opportunity. It started subtly, a casual observation from Officer Grant, then a deliberate slowing of their pace, their eyes fixed on Dr. Holloway. "Ma'am, can we have a word?" he began, his voice deceptively smooth but with an edge that promised trouble. The accusation was flimsy, something about suspicious activity near the self-checkout, or perhaps a vague claim about fitting the description of someone who had recently caused a disturbance in the area. Nonsense, of course, but nonsense backed by a uniform and a badge carries a different weight. Dr. Holloway simply looked at them. Her gaze was calm, unwavering, perhaps a touch inquisitive. It was the gaze of someone who had seen it all before, who understood the script perfectly. And that calmness, that quiet observation, seemed to prick at Officer Grant's arrogance. He expected fear, deference. He got serene, analytical focus. The escalation was swift, almost practiced. The questioning intensified. "Ma'am, we need to see your ID." "And what exactly were you doing back there?" The tone shifted, became more aggressive. Dr. Holloway, maintaining her composure, politely but firmly asserted her rights. "Officer, I've done nothing wrong. My identification is in my purse. but I'm afraid I don't appreciate being interrogated in the middle of a grocery store without cause." That was the breaking point. Grant's face tightened. "Resisting, are we? I'm afraid we're going to have to take you in for questioning." And then, the unthinkable. They moved. Quickly, roughly. Dr. Holloway, a woman who had taught history for 50 years, found herself being gripped by young hands, spun around and cuffed. Her dignified, erect posture was forced into an unnatural curve, her arm twisted behind her back. It happened so fast, yet in slow motion for her. The metallic click of the handcuffs, the sudden jarring pain, and through it all, her mind, sharp as ever, was recording. Every detail, every sound, every arrogant smirk on Officer Grant's face. Unbeknownst to them, across the aisle a young man named Marcus Thorne was witnessing the entire scene. His phone was already in his hand, recording, trembling slightly. He, like countless others in Liberty City, had grown up understanding the unspoken rules of Precinct 7, but seeing an elderly woman, a Dr. Holloway, treated with such casual brutality, something inside him snapped. He kept recording. Grant spotted him. "Hey, put that phone away. That's evidence tampering." He moved with practiced speed, confiscating Marcus's phone, deleting the footage right there, right in front of him. "Go on, kid, unless you want to join your new friend." Marcus, intimidated, but his mind burning with what he'd just seen, could only watch as they led Dr. Holloway away. This was the culture of Precinct 7, a place where body cam footage malfunctioned almost routinely, especially in hot zones, usually neighborhoods where the residents didn't have the resources or influence to fight back. A place where confiscated cash often vanished before it hit the evidence locker, fueling a shadow economy for those in power. A place where a simple traffic stop could escalate into a wrongful arrest, not for justice, but to meet quotas, to intimidate residents, to remind everyone who was truly in charge. They had refined this system over 2 decades, making it into an art form of oppression. They saw an easy target, an old woman, a throwaway. They thought they were teaching her a lesson. But Dr. Vivian Holloway, she wasn't just a victim, she wasn't just an easy target, she was a strategist. And as they shoved her into the back of that patrol car, her mind, cool and analytical, wasn't reeling in fear, it was transforming. The Dr. Holloway, that patrol car, wasn't a prison, it was a classroom. And Precinct 7, that wasn't just a police station, it was her new laboratory. The lesson they were about to receive, delivered by a woman they grossly underestimated, would be etched into the history of Liberty City forever. Because sometimes, the person you think is weakest holds the most potent power. And sometimes, the very system designed to break you becomes the instrument of its own undoing. The steel door slammed shut behind Dr. Vivian Holloway with a brutal finality. The sound echoed in the sterile, stale air of Precinct 7's holding cell. This wasn't the plush academic office she was used to, nor the sun-drenched aisles of Bloomfield Market. This was the belly of the beast. The atmosphere was immediate, the harsh, unforgiving glare of fluorescent lights that seemed to suck the color out of everything, the cloying, acrid scent of stale coffee, cheap disinfectant and something else. Something indescribably metallic, like old fear. Faintly, you could hear the distant, muffled shouts of officers, the ringing of phones, the occasional burst of a loud, dismissive laugh. This wasn't just a holding cell, it was the nerve center of their empire, a tightly wound coil of unspoken rules and corrupted power. For anyone else, this might have been a moment of despair, of terror, of indignity, but Dr. Holloway, her mind honed by decades of historical analysis and critical thinking, shifted gears. Her initial surprise gave way to a cold, calm resolve. This wasn't a punishment. This was an opportunity. This was her new laboratory. She settled onto the hard bench, her posture still remarkably upright, and began to observe. Her senses became finely tuned instruments. She didn't just sit, she listened. She didn't just see, she analyzed, she memorized. Every detail became a piece of data. The specific tone of Officer Grant's voice when he called someone chief, laced with a practiced deference that bordered on fear. The way Officer Dixon nervously chewed his lip whenever a phone call from Mayor Thornton was mentioned. The quick, hushed whispers of deals being made just outside her cell door, easily audible through the thin walls. She heard names, dates, fragments of illicit conversations. Did you lose the evidence from the Miller case? The kickbacks from the new downtown construction bid are due by Friday. Don't forget the chief's cut. Judge Sterling will sign off on the gag order, just make sure the paperwork is clean. It was a symphony of corruption, and Dr. Holloway was taking mental notes, meticulously cataloguing each instrument, each player, each discordant note. She mentally sketched out the organizational chart of this criminal enterprise. The low-level enforcers like Grant and Dixon, the mid-level managers, the sergeants and lieutenants who facilitated the cover-ups, and at the very top, the shadowy figures pulling the strings, Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton, Judge Sterling. This wasn't just a random act of bad policing. This was a system, a well-oiled, efficient, and horrifyingly normal way of operating for them. They had built this labyrinth of lies, perfecting it over 2 decades, believing its walls were impenetrable. In fact, the callousness of it all was what truly struck Dr. Holloway. They weren't hiding their activities with any real skill from the inside. They were so confident in their untouchability, their methods so ingrained, that they spoke freely, almost casually, about their crimes. They didn't even bother to deny Dr. Holloway her right to a phone call for hours, a delay that only provided her with more time to gather intelligence. Why rush when your victim is just another disposable statistic? Their arrogance was their greatest vulnerability. But even in the deepest shadows there are always glimmers of light. There was Detective Anya Sharma. She was a seasoned officer, respected on paper, but internally she was an exile. For years Anya had seen the rot, the corruption eating away at Precinct 7 from the inside out. She'd quietly, meticulously, been collecting her own evidence. Not for fame, not for glory, but out of a desperate, quiet moral compass that refused to be extinguished. Every missing file, every whispered bribe, every fabricated report, she documented it, tucked it away, waiting for the impossible moment to strike. She looked at Dr. Holloway, this dignified, unjustly accused woman, and recognized a kindred spirit, a reflection of the integrity she desperately clung to. And then there was Officer Davies, young, fresh-faced, and visibly uncomfortable. He was the nervous newbie drawn into the precinct's web but not yet fully consumed. You could see it in his eyes, the subtle flinches when Grant or Dixon spoke about roughing up a suspect, the way he avoided looking at the paperwork when it was clearly altered. Dr. Holloway observed him too, a spark of decency perhaps, a potential turning point. His discomfort was another piece of the puzzle, confirming the rot for her. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Dr. Holloway was denied access to her phone, her requests met with dismissive waves or outright laughter. They wanted to break her, to wear her down, but every refusal, every sneer, every casual remark was just more data for her. She saw reports being altered right before her eyes, witnessed officers deleting body cam footage with nonchalant ease. She heard them discussing losing her own intake paperwork as if she could simply vanish into the system. This is a critical lesson, one often learned the hard way in life. When you find yourself in the darkest corners, stripped of your usual defenses, sometimes your most powerful weapon isn't brute force or panicked reaction. It's quiet observation. It's an unyielding commitment to truth. It's the ability to turn a terrifying moment into an intelligence-gathering operation. Dr. Holloway wasn't just a victim in that cell. She was an intelligence agent, meticulously gathering the ammunition she needed to bring down an entire corrupt system. They thought they had her trapped in their labyrinth of lies. They thought they had all the time in the world. They thought she was just another nameless face to be processed and forgotten. They didn't realize that every minute they kept her in that cell, every conversation they had within earshot, every document they carelessly handled, they were not just building a case against her, they were building her case against them. And soon, very soon, she would be making a phone call, a very important phone call, one that would shatter their illusion of untouchability and bring the full weight of federal power crashing down on their fortress. Hours stretched into an eternity in that stale, echoing cell. Hours of Dr. Holloway's meticulous observation, every detail absorbed, categorized, cross-referenced in the vast library of her mind. The officers, confident in their impunity, had almost forgotten about her. She was just another piece of paperwork to be misplaced later. Then, a sudden jolt, the jingle of keys, the creak of the cell door. Officer Dixon, looking bored, perhaps even a little annoyed, stood there. "All right, old-timer, your one call, don't waste it." He tossed a grimy precinct phone onto the small scratched metal table in the common area. Dr. Holloway rose slowly, deliberately. She walked over to the phone, her movements precise, her eyes calm. This wasn't just a call. This was the call, the moment she would unleash the knowledge she had meticulously gathered. She dialed a number etched deep into her memory. Not a local number. This number led to a different world entirely. A world where justice wasn't a commodity, but a mandate. On the other end, miles away in a sleek, modern office overlooking the gleaming Potomac River in Washington, D.C., sat Jonathan Holloway, the U.S. Attorney General. His desk, usually a battlefield of complex legal documents and national crises, was, at this moment, relatively calm. Then his personal line rang. It was his mother. Jonathan's first instinct was concern. His mother never called him on his secure line unless it was truly urgent. "Mum, are you all right?" His voice, usually calm and authoritative, held a tremor of anxiety. Dr. Holloway's voice, however, was as steady and clear as a bell. "Jonathan, dear, it seems I found myself in an educational environment." Jonathan immediately understood. His mother's code. Educational environment meant trouble, serious trouble. His spine stiffened. "Oh," he responded, his voice now carefully neutral, his mind already racing. "Yes, quite an intricate syllabus," she continued, her tone almost academic. "They call it Precinct 7. It's truly a marvel of systemic inefficiency. I've noted the principal players, those in charge of the curriculum, if you will, a Mr. Grant, a Mr. Dixon, and references to a Chief Harding and a Mayor Thornton. Oh, and a Judge Sterling seems quite involved in their extracurricular activities. They seem to have misplaced some key textbooks, specifically anything with body cam or security footage on it, and they're quite skilled at restructuring records. It's all quite fascinating. From a sociological perspective, wouldn't you agree, Jonathan?" Jonathan's knuckles were white as he gripped the receiver. His mother wasn't just telling him she'd been arrested. She was providing a detailed intelligence report. Names, tactics, the hierarchy of corruption, the chilling implications of misplaced textbooks and restructured records meant a cover-up was already underway. He heard the underlying message. They think I'm just an old woman. They think they're safe. They are not. "Fascinating indeed, Mum," Jonathan replied, his voice a low growl of controlled fury. "Stay put. Don't say another word to anyone. Help is on its way." The moment he hung up, Jonathan Holloway transformed. The U.S. Attorney General, the man responsible for upholding federal law across the nation, went into crisis mode. Personal concern for his mother merged seamlessly with professional duty. This wasn't just a wrongful arrest. This was an attack on the very principles he swore to uphold. He barked orders into his intercom. "Get me Director Evans of the FBI. Get me the head of the Public Corruption Unit. Pull all intelligence on Liberty City's Precinct 7, Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton, and Judge Sterling. I want everything. Every complaint, every dismissed case, every anonymous tip." Now, within minutes, his office was a hive of activity. Top federal agents, forensic accountants, and legal strategists converged. This wasn't just about rescuing his mother. It was about dismantling a deeply entrenched criminal enterprise. And then, a breakthrough. Just as Jonathan's team was beginning to dig, an encrypted package arrived at their secure server. It was anonymous, carefully routed through layers of digital obfuscation. The contents made Jonathan's blood run cold, even as a grim satisfaction settled over him. It was Detective Anya Sharma's meticulously compiled ledger. Years of patient, quiet work, detailed records of bribes, names, dates, amounts, evidence of doctored reports, suppressed witness statements, a chilling pattern of racial disparities in arrests and sentencing. It corroborated everything Dr. Holloway had observed. And then some. This wasn't just corruption, This was a parallel justice system, built on greed and fear, operating within the very framework of the law. Precinct 7 wasn't an anomaly, it was a symptom of a larger systemic disease. Chief Harding had been running a protection racket, extorting local businesses. Mayor Thornton was deep in money laundering, using municipal projects as fronts, and Judge Sterling, the supposed arbiter of justice, was their willing accomplice, issuing gag orders, dismissing inconvenient cases, and ensuring their illicit operations remained untouchable. Jonathan's team began to map out the network. They saw the patterns, they saw the cold, calculated efficiency of the operation. This wasn't random acts of greed. It was a sophisticated criminal organization masquerading as public service. They were using the power of the badge, the gavel, and the mayor's office to enrich themselves and oppress the very people they swore to protect. This realization, the sheer audacity of it, fueled Jonathan's resolve. This wasn't just about his mother, this was about every citizen in Liberty City, every person who had been silenced, every voice that had been crushed by the iron grip of Precinct 7. And here's a critical lesson for all of us. When fighting systemic injustice, it's not enough to address the symptoms. You have to dismantle the root cause. You have to understand the entire network. Just like Dr. Holloway understood the connections within that precinct, Jonathan knew he couldn't just arrest a few bad officers. He had to take down the entire corrupt structure. They thought they had time. They thought they had control. But the call that Dr. Holloway made, the quiet, coded intelligence she delivered, had already set an unstoppable force in motion. A force that would very soon smash through the illusion of their untouchable fortress. The storm was gathering, and they had no idea just how powerful the lightning bolt, triggered by a seemingly frail old woman, was about to be. The phone call that Dr. Vivian Holloway made from Precinct 7 wasn't just a ripple, it was a tsunami. Miles away in Washington, D.C., Jonathan Holloway, the U.S. Attorney General, had already unleashed the full force of his federal team. The data was pouring in. The patterns were undeniable. The sheer audacity of Precinct 7's corruption was breathtaking. But as the federal machine began to churn, a chilling realization hit Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton, and Judge Sterling. The mother of the U.S. Attorney General was their prisoner. The casual arrest, the easy target they'd chosen, had just become the fuse that would ignite their entire empire. Panic. It started as a trickle, then became a flood. Not the blind, flailing panic of amateurs, but the cold, calculating panic of career criminals suddenly facing exposure. They knew what was at stake. Decades of illicit wealth, carefully constructed power, all of it about to crumble. Their first instinct? Obliterate the evidence. The shredders in Precinct 7 worked overtime, devouring documents like hungry monsters. Hard drives were wiped with desperate haste. Physical ledgers, hidden away in dusty storage rooms, were pulled out and hastily set ablaze in makeshift incinerators behind the precinct. They were burning their bridges, hoping the smoke would obscure their tracks. But the most critical piece of evidence, of course, was Dr. Vivian Holloway herself. They couldn't simply make her disappear, not the mother of the U.S. Attorney General. But they could try to lose her. The plan was chillingly efficient. Falsify her release records, then immediately transfer her to a maximum security federal prison miles away from Liberty City on trumped-up charges. Once she was deep in the federal system, controlled by their connections, she would be silenced, lost, forgotten. And then there was Marcus Thorne, the young man from Bloomfield Market, whose phone Officer Grant had so confidently confiscated. Marcus was a loose end, a civilian witness. Grant and Dixon, fueled by their superiors' panic, were tasked with tying him up. They knew Marcus lived in a tougher part of Liberty City, an area where the police were less about protection and more about control. The plan was simple. Set him up, plant a small amount of drugs on him, or frame him for a petty theft. Get him into the system, get him out of the picture. Silence his voice before it could join Dr. Holloway's. But their frantic efforts were being watched. From the inside. Detective Anya Sharma. She moved like a phantom through the increasingly chaotic halls of Precinct 7. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her resolve was iron. She had been documenting their crimes for years, but now the stakes were personal. She knew Dr. Holloway's life, and perhaps Marcus's, hung in the balance. Every desperate move by Chief Harding, every hushed phone call by Mayor Thornton, every frantic email from Judge Sterling, Anya saw it all. She used her secure, untraceable channels, feeding real-time updates to Jonathan Holloway's team. "They're destroying financials," she'd type, her fingers flying. "Chief Harding trying to get an emergency transfer order for Holloway. Dixon and Grant are moving on Thorne's address now." Her courage in these moments was immense, a quiet defiance that could cost her everything. She was placing her life on the line, acting as the eyes and ears of justice within the very heart of corruption. Jonathan's team, armed with Anya's crucial leaks, became a step ahead. They anticipated every desperate move. When the transfer order for Dr. Holloway came through, citing a security risk, Jonathan's legal team immediately moved to block it, filing an emergency injunction. They knew this was a classic tactic to make a witness disappear. And for Marcus Thorne, the moment officers Grant and Dixon pulled up to his building, ready to execute their nefarious plan, they were met by a fleet of unmarked federal vehicles. Jonathan's agents, alerted by Anya, had arrived just moments before, securing Marcus, protecting him from the corrupt officers' grasp. The look on Grant and Dixon's faces as federal badges flashed before them was a mixture of stunned disbelief and utter terror. Their plan had backfired spectacularly. Marcus, realizing the danger he'd been in and the protection he'd received, felt a surge of courage. He knew now he had to speak. This is where the true battle lies, isn't it? It's not just about uncovering corruption, but about the frantic, desperate dance that ensues when the corrupt realize they're exposed. It's a race against time, a battle of wits. They will try to silence you. They will try to destroy what you've found. They will use every trick in their book, legal or illegal, to protect their ill-gotten gains. But here's the lesson. Corruption thrives in the dark, in the quiet spaces of unchallenged power. But even the most intricate web of deceit, woven over decades, cannot withstand the relentless, focused light of truth and coordinated action. When individuals like Dr. Holloway observe, when individuals like Anya Sharma bravely speak out, and when individuals like Jonathan Holloway leverage power for justice, that web begins to unravel. The clock was ticking down. For Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton and Judge Sterling, their carefully constructed fortress was about to crumble. The storm, promised by a quiet, dignified professor, was no longer gathering. It was here. The storm didn't just gather, it erupted. The once impenetrable walls of Precinct 7, that fortress of corruption, were about to be breached. At the very moment Chief Harding was signing the transfer papers to disappear Dr. Vivian Holloway into a federal black hole, the front doors of the precinct burst open. A flood of federal agents, led by the stern, unwavering face of an FBI director, poured in. They moved with swift, precise efficiency, a stark contrast to the sloppy arrogance of Precinct 7. Uniformed officers, caught off guard, froze. "U.S. Attorney General's office, federal warrant," the lead agent's voice boomed, cutting through the sudden silence. "This precinct is under federal investigation. Everyone, hands where I can see them." It was a scene of controlled chaos. Simultaneously, federal task forces raided multiple locations across Liberty City. At his opulent mansion, Mayor Thornton was found frantically shoveling documents into a roaring fireplace, only to be stopped by agents kicking in his door. In his chambers, Judge Sterling was caught mid-sentence, attempting to issue one final desperate gag order, his gavel clattering uselessly to the floor as agents surrounded him, and Chief Harding, at his desk in Precinct 7, slumped, his face ashen, realizing the game was unequivocally over. The arrests were swift, almost clinical. The architects of Liberty City's corruption, Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton and Judge Sterling, were taken into custody. Their expressions, once so arrogant, now twisted with a mixture of disbelief, terror, and a chilling recognition of their complete downfall. They thought they were untouchable. They had finally met a force that simply did not care about their rules. And then, the moment.
Amidst the organized commotion, a lone federal agent approached Dr. Holloway's cell. The heavy door swung open. Dr. Holloway, still composed, still dignified, stepped out. Her eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the scene, the shocked faces of the precinct officers, the purposeful movements of the federal agents. She saw Officer Grant, pale and trembling, being led away in handcuffs. A subtle, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement passed between her and the agent. Then she saw him, her son, Jonathan Holloway. He stood there, a mixture of professional resolve and profound personal relief washing over his face. He didn't rush. He simply walked towards her. When they met, there were no dramatic embraces, no tearful reunions in that harsh fluorescent light, just a shared look of understanding, of triumph, a quiet, knowing glance between a mother who had initiated the storm and a son who had brought it to its devastating conclusion.
"Mum," Jonathan said, his voice husky with emotion. Dr. Holloway simply smiled, a small knowing curve of her lips. "Jonathan, I trust you've had a productive day?" The real work, however, was just beginning. Dr. Holloway, the unseen architect, now became the invaluable consultant. She sat with Jonathan's team, her memory a human archive. Every name she'd heard, every detail of every conversation she'd mentally transcribed, every subtle sign of deceit. It was all meticulously cross-referenced with the mountain of evidence Anya Sharma had provided, and the digital trails the federal agents were now unearthing. Her calm, precise testimony was chillingly effective, filling in the gaps, painting a complete picture of the sprawling criminal enterprise. And Marcus Thorne, the young man whose phone had been confiscated, whose testimony had been dismissed? His voice, once suppressed, now roared. Protected by federal agents, Marcus provided his statement, detailing years of harassment, racial profiling and casual cruelty he and his community had endured at the hands of Precinct 7. His story provided the crucial human element, reminding everyone that this wasn't just about financial corruption. It was about the daily injustices inflicted upon ordinary citizens. The gag order so confidently issued by Judge Sterling was swiftly overturned. The story of Precinct 7, of Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton and Judge Sterling, exploded across national news. The public was outraged. Protests erupted in Liberty City, not just against the corrupt officials, but for systemic change. The consequences were swift and unyielding. Judge Sterling, consumed by despair and facing a life sentence, died in prison, awaiting trial. Mayor Thornton, stripped of his power and wealth, tried to flee the country only to be apprehended at the airport, his once impeccable suit now a symbol of his desperate flight. Chief Harding, the man who had perfected the system, faced the full weight of federal prosecution, his attempts to make a deal rejected. This wasn't just a few bad apples being removed. This was the systematic dismantling of an entire, rotten tree. And here's a profound lesson we can all carry with us. Justice, when it finally arrives, isn't just about punishment. It's about tearing down the old to build something fundamentally new. It's about the overwhelming power of truth, meticulously gathered and bravely presented, to shatter even the most fortified structures of injustice. It's about seeing the powerful brought to account, reminding us that no one, absolutely no one, is truly above the law. The empire of Precinct 7 had fallen. The shadows were receding. But the dawn of accountability was also the dawn of something much more profound. It was the beginning of rebuilding, of healing, and of ensuring that the sacrifices made by Dr. Vivian Holloway and brave individuals like Anya Sharma and Marcus Thorne would not be in vain. The dust settled in Liberty City. The shouts of "federal warrant" had faded. The clicking of handcuffs was replaced by the solemn opening and closing of courtroom doors. Chief Harding, Mayor Thornton and Judge Sterling were gone, their names now synonymous with corruption, their power stripped away, their empires reduced to rubble. But the story of Dr. Vivian Holloway was never just about a takedown. It was about what came next. It was about the seeds of change. The first step was rebuilding. Precinct 7, once a symbol of fear, underwent a radical transformation. New leadership was appointed, chosen not for their connections but for their integrity. Transparency became the watchword. Body cameras, once malfunctioning, were now mandatory and audited. Community oversight boards, made up of the very citizens who had suffered under the old regime, were established, given real power to review complaints and shape policy. This wasn't just a band-aid, it was a deep systemic overhaul. And the money? The vast sums of illicit wealth confiscated from Harding, Thornton and Sterling? Jonathan Holloway's team ensured every penny was recovered. These funds, once lining the pockets of the corrupt, were now redirected back into the communities they had plundered. New schools broke ground in underserved neighborhoods. Community centers, once neglected, received funding for vital programs. Infrastructure projects, long stalled by corrupt contracts, finally moved forward. Liberty City began to heal, brick by brick, community program by community program. And what of the individuals who risked everything? Detective Anya Sharma, the quiet, brave whistleblower, emerged from the shadows. She wasn't just cleared of wrongdoing, she was celebrated. Her years of meticulous, secret documentation became the blueprint for a new era of police accountability. She was appointed to head Liberty City's newly formed Internal Integrity Unit, a department dedicated to preventing future corruption and fostering ethical policing. Anya became a beacon, a living testament to the power of a single conscience within a corrupt system. And Marcus Thorne, the young man whose phone had been confiscated, whose voice they tried to silence, he didn't just walk away. Inspired by Dr. Holloway's quiet strength and fueled by his own experiences, Marcus enrolled in journalism school. He dedicated his career to investigative reporting, focusing on police accountability and social justice. He became a voice for the voiceless, his articles and documentaries bringing truth to light, ensuring that no community would suffer in silence, as his once had. His personal story became a powerful example of turning trauma into purpose. And Dr. Vivian Holloway herself, she didn't seek the spotlight, but it found her. Her story, the Holloway precedent, became legendary. It was taught in law schools across the country, a case study in how systemic corruption can be exposed and dismantled, and how a single, sharp-minded individual can catalyze monumental change. Police academies began incorporating her story into their ethics training, emphasizing the importance of integrity, community trust, and the dangers of underestimating anyone. She wasn't just a figure in a courtroom, she became a symbol. She traveled not as a celebrity, but as an educator, sharing her experience in community workshops and dialogues on police reform. She always returned to the same core message: real power isn't in controlling people, it's in standing up for what's right. And true justice is found not just in punishment, but in the painstaking work of rebuilding trust. Dr. Holloway's story in many ways echoes the countless, often unsung heroes of our history. Think of Rosa Parks, whose quiet defiance on a bus ignited a national movement. Think of the countless grassroots activists, community organizers, and everyday citizens who, armed with nothing but their conviction and their voice, dared to challenge seemingly invincible systems. They are the unseen architects of change, chipping away at injustice, brick by painstaking brick. Their victories are not always marked by grand parades or national holidays. Sometimes victory looks like a community regaining its trust in law enforcement. Sometimes it looks like a young journalist finding his purpose. Sometimes it looks like an honest police officer finally having the space to do her job with integrity. And here's a profound lesson we must never forget. The fight for justice is never truly over. It never really will be. Systems can be rebuilt, but vigilance is eternal. The fight simply finds new warriors to carry the torch. But Dr. Vivian Holloway showed us that victory is possible, that systems can be changed, that justice can prevail.
As darkness fell over Liberty City once more, Dr. Holloway sat in her rocking chair, a quiet smile on her face. Around her neck, the pearl necklace, a retirement gift from generations of students, caught the fading light, a silent testament to the lives she had touched, the truths she had imparted. She thought about all that had changed, the community transformed, the legacy of fear replaced with hope.
But more importantly, she thought about what remained constant: the enduring power of truth, the unwavering importance of courage, and the endless, necessary work of building justice. One observation, one phone call, one brave act at a time. She knew that somewhere in the city, somewhere across the nation, someone else was finding the courage to stand up for what was right. The storm she had promised had done its work. clearing the way for something new to grow.
And in that growth, in those new seeds of change, lay the true, immeasurable measure of her victory. 7. Your turn, becoming an architect of justice. The story of Dr. Vivian Holloway is a testament to the power of one, a story that traveled from the sterile confines of a corrupt precinct to the highest levels of federal power, ultimately reshaping a city and inspiring a nation. But it's more than just a tale of courage. It's a blueprint. It's a living, breathing guide for each of us. How many Dr. Vivian Holloways are out there right now, silently watching injustice unfold in their own communities, gathering evidence, sometimes without even realizing it, just by paying attention, waiting for their moment to speak truth to power? How many systems, big or small, whether it's local corruption, workplace discrimination, or simply an unfair practice in your neighborhood, still need to be exposed, still need to be dismantled? You see, you don't need a badge or a law degree to spot injustice. You don't need to be a U.S. Attorney General or a seasoned detective or a fearless journalist. You simply need keen eyes, a sharp mind, and perhaps most importantly, the quiet, unwavering courage to stand up for what's right, to believe that even the smallest observation can spark the biggest change. Think about it. Dr. Holloway didn't have a camera crew. She didn't have a legal team ready. She had her wits, her memory, and a lifetime of understanding human nature. She turned her confinement into an intelligence-gathering mission. And you too can be an architect of justice in your own life, in your own community. So, how do you begin? First, observe and document. Pay attention. Notice the patterns. If something feels wrong, if you see an injustice, safely and legally document it. Your phone is a powerful tool. Your notes, your voice memos, your photographs, they are powerful pieces of evidence waiting to be used. Just as Dr. Holloway painstakingly cataloged every whisper, every detail in her mind, you can use the tools at your disposal to record and remember. Second, know your rights. Educate yourself. Understand the basic rights you have as a citizen. How do you file a complaint? Where can you access public information? When should you remain silent and when should you speak up? Knowledge is power, and knowing your rights is your first line of defense and often your most effective weapon. Third, seek support. You are not alone. This is a crucial lesson. Dr. Holloway had Jonathan. Anya Sharma had her own quiet resolve, then found an ally in Jonathan. Marcus found protection. There are organizations, legal aid groups, and community networks dedicated to fighting injustice. Find your allies. Connect with others who share your concerns. There is immense strength in unity, in sharing your story, and in amplifying each other's voices. And finally, engage. Your voice matters. Not just in protest, but at the ballot box. Support leaders who champion accountability, reform, and true justice. Demand transparency from your local institutions. Attend community meetings. Speak up when you see something wrong, even if it feels small. Every single act of defiance against injustice contributes to the larger movement towards a more equitable world. The battle for justice never truly ends. It's an ongoing, evolving journey. It simply finds new warriors to fight it. But the legacy of Dr. Vivian Holloway reminds us that victory is possible, that systems can be changed, that justice can and will prevail. Her story is a powerful testament to the fact that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet strength. Sometimes it's simply paying attention. And sometimes it's just one phone call made with unwavering resolve that can change everything. Will you be the next architect of justice? Will you be the one to light the way in your community? Will you be the one to turn an unjust moment into a powerful lesson for everyone? If this story resonated with you, if it ignited a spark of hope or determination, please give this video a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has faced injustice, or someone who needs to be reminded of the power of their own voice. And most importantly, subscribe to join our growing community of justice seekers. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next powerful true story of courage and transformation, because every single day, ordinary people are doing extraordinary things, and their stories need to be told.